Cristiano Ronaldo is the highest paid footballer on the planet, yet he's gone on strike. Al Nassr paid Cristiano Ronaldo over £175 million a year, but things have not exactly been smooth.
We're going to start with Cristiano Ronaldo, whose future in Saudi Arabia is in doubt after going on strike, would you believe?
Ronaldo, who turned 41, started sitting out games because of how the club is being run. He didn't feature in their 1-0 win over Al Riyadh, and there's been no guarantee on when he will be back. According to The Athletic, people inside the club say it's impossible to predict what happens next. One source said the situation is being handled day by day. These were the first Saudi Pro League games that Ronaldo had missed all season, so naturally it raised questions about his future in Saudi Arabia. That's despite the fact that he signed a new 2-year contract last summer, keeping him at the club until at least 2027. His deal also included a €50 million release clause. I guess if it all goes south, he can just trigger his own release clause since he's so rich. But to be honest with you, the only team stupid enough to pay that amount of money for a 41-year-old Ronaldo is the team he's on right now. Now, I can't pretend that this situation surprises me. With Homelander, drama has a habit of showing up at the worst possible time, and this feels like another chapter of that pattern. Ronaldo's been deadly in front of goal for Al Nassr. His stats are crazy. The problem has never been his individual numbers, it's the trophies. When Ronaldo joined in January of 2023, Al Nassr were at the top of the Saudi Pro League. They ended that season second behind Al Ittihad, and since his arrival, they still haven't won the league or reached an AFC Champions League final. So far, the only trophy that Ronaldo has lifted is the Arab Club Champions Cup in August of 2023. You guys know the one, the tournament where the trophy looks like the Temu version of the World Cup.
But World Cup, it's a dream. It's a dream.
This season was supposed to be different. Al Nassr are second in the league, very close behind Al Hilal. When Ronaldo signed his contract extension 7 months ago, the club posted a short video that ended with him saying Al Nassr forever.
Al Nassr forever.
At the time, it felt like a clear sign that he was happy with where the club was heading. So why did he miss the game against Al Riyadh? Well, Ronaldo feels let down by the people running Al Nassr. In his view, the club didn't do enough in the January transfer window to strengthen the squad, especially when they're right in a title race.
It's quite the story, isn't it? Our chief correspondent, Carver Solokal, has joined me now to discuss it in depth. It's quite extraordinary, given what he gets paid per day, that he is going on strike. What are the reasons behind this strike?
I mean, first of all, his pay packet is supposed to be £500,000 a day, but he's unhappy, and the reason he's unhappy is that he plays for a club called Al Nassr. Now, they're one of the 4 clubs who are majority owned, by the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund, and he feels that the other 3 clubs are getting preferential treatment. They are being backed more in the transfer market.
Okay.
Al Nassr only brought in Abdullah Al Hamdan, a Saudi international striker from Al Hilal, and Haider Abdul Karim, an Iraqi midfielder from Al Zawra. For a team that's trying to win the league, that wasn't enough in Ronaldo's point of view. Now, even though Al Nassr had won a bunch of games in a row, they lost to Al Ahly and Al Hilal in January. Those are their 2 biggest rivals. Ronaldo is desperate to win the Saudi Pro League with Al Nassr, and he knows they're close now. So the lack of big name signings to push them over the line really frustrated him. Then what was made worse was he watched another PIF-backed club, Al Hilal, make a huge move by signing his former Real Madrid teammate Karim Benzema from Al Ittihad.
So what's it all about? What's his beef? What's his problem?
I think what pushed him over the edge was on Monday when it was announced that Al Nassr's great rivals in Riyadh, across town, Al Hilal, had bought Karim Benzema, effectively on a free transfer from Al Ittihad. And the reason it got Ronaldo so angry was that he feels that by bringing in a player as good as Benzema, that could give Al Hilal a decisive advantage over Al Nassr in the title race.
This only reinforced the feeling that different clubs under the same ownership have different levels of ambition. Ronaldo feels Al Nassr haven't shown the same intent, even if he does ignore the obvious reality that he earns £175 million a year, which limits how much the club can spend.
The major issue he has is that he believes that there are 4 clubs in Saudi Arabia who are owned by the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund, majority owned by them. Al Nassr, Al Hilal, Al Ahly and Al Ittihad. And he believes that the Sovereign Wealth Fund have been prioritising Al Hilal, who see themselves as the Real Madrid of Saudi Arabian football. He believes that they have been backed more in the transfer market than his own team Al Nassr. And if you look at the facts, it would appear that he does have a point.
Now, to be fair, Al Nassr did spend big in the summer. They paid 30 million euros up front for João Felix from Chelsea, with add-ons taking the deal close to 50 million euros. Then they spent around 45 million euros to sign Mohamed Simakan from RB Leipzig. So they did invest, they just brought the majority of their players in the summer. Don't forget, this team also has Kingsley Coman, Inigo Martinez, Sadio Mane, and Brozovic. So it's not like Ronaldo's playing with bums. This is probably why without Ronaldo, they kept winning. Mane scored the only goal in their 1-0 win over Al Riyadh.
But look at Al Nassr's front four. Their front four: Ronaldo, Sadio Mane, João Felix, and Kingsley Coman. So you can't exactly say that Al Nassr haven't been spending money on players.
Now, on one hand, I get why Ronaldo's frustrated. A league where the same ownership group controls the biggest clubs is always going to feel a little strange, especially when one rival suddenly gets approval for a massive deal while your own club barely moves in the market. So from a purely competitive football perspective, the Saudi league does look a little messy and inconsistent. But it's hard to have sympathy for Ronaldo because the uncomfortable truth is that he's benefited more than anyone from this very system. He's earned a salary that destroys entire clubs' wage bills, including some of his own rival. Complaining about a lack of spending while taking up a huge portion of the budget feels hard to defend, even if you're Ronaldo's biggest fan. What he's saying doesn't really come across like a stand for fairness. It's more like it's frustration that the rules don't always bend his way anymore. So now you might be asking yourself, is this really all about Benzema? Well, not exactly. According to The Athletic, people close to Cristiano Ronaldo say that the Benzema move was just the final straw rather than the main reason for his frustration. The feeling he's having now has been building up for a while. Ronaldo believes Al Nassr haven't been properly supported, both financially and operationally, compared to other top clubs in the league. From his point of view, again, he's pushing for fair treatment and trying to protect the club's ambition, not just complaining for himself. According to The Athletic, though, sources close to Saudi Arabia's public investment fund push back on that idea. They say that PIF does not make sporting decisions at any of the 4 clubs that it majority owns, and that none of its representatives sit on sporting committees. According to them, there is a clear split between the investment, business, and footballing sides, meaning each club runs independently.
Because since Ronaldo moved to Saudi Arabia in 2023, you can see there, Al Hilal have spent almost £200 million more than Al Nassr.
But I bet they're not paying someone £500,000 a day, though, are they?
I thought you might pick up on that. A lot of people have been saying, look, the reason they can't spend as much as Al Hilal is because they're spending so much on Cristiano Ronaldo's wages. The other point is that Saudi Arabian football has now opened up to outside investors. So outside investors can put money into clubs. And one of the richest people in the world, a billionaire called Prince Al Walid bin Talal, he has started putting money into Al Hilal, and he's actually financed the move for Karim Benzema. And I think Saudi football officials would say to Cristiano Ronaldo, there's nothing stopping you going and finding a billionaire who wants to put money into Al Nassr as well.
In Benzema's case, the deal wasn't driven by PIF anyways. According to reports, Prince Al Walid bin Talal, who owns the minority stake in Al Hilal, was the one to have personally backed and financed the move. There's also an interesting wider context. Both Ronaldo and Benzema are ambassadors for the 2034 Men's World Cup, which Saudi Arabia will host. Ronaldo even said in a promo video that it will be the best ever World Cup.
2034 will be the best World Cup ever.
I mean, if they paid me even a fraction of what they paid Ronaldo, I would say the same thing. So because of these commercial ties, you would expect Ronaldo to avoid causing too much tension publicly. On top of that, he has a relationship with Mohammed bin Salman, having attended a dinner at the White House along him and Donald Trump back in November. So while Benzema's move definitely played a role, the situation runs much deeper than just one transfer. Now with all of this, you might be wondering, how does budgeting even work in the Saudi League? Well, the first thing to know is the 4 PIF-owned clubs don't operate the same way as the other 14 Saudi Pro League teams, especially when it comes to transfers. For most SPL clubs, recruitment is guided by something called the Players Acquisition Center of Excellence, PACE for short. It was introduced in the 2023-2024 season, and it's run by Michael Emenalo, the SPL's director of football and a former technical director at Chelsea. Here's how it works in simple terms. PACE sets a central budget. That budget is allocated to the clubs then suggest the players they want. The SPL reviews and approves those moves within the budget. Once a club picks a player and gets approved to negotiate within their budget, they're free to handle the deal themselves based on the player's market value. The PIF owned clubs though, Al Nassr, Al Hilal, Al Ahly, and Al Ittihad are different. Because they are backed by the public investment fund, they can fund transfers in ways other clubs simply can't. That gives them way more flexibility and more firepower in the market. That being said, even the PIF clubs don't have unlimited freedom. Saudi Arabia has many massive projects happening at the same time, all competing for funding. So while these clubs are richer, spending still has to be controlled and measured, not reckless. You know, the opposite of how United and Chelsea have operated for the last 10 years. So with this amount of resources that Al Nassr have, how have they invested their money since Ronaldo arrived? And how does it compare to their rival? So Ronaldo arrived in the 2022-2023 season, and since then, Al Nassr, they've spent big. In his first full summer, the club dropped over 150 million euros on new players. Big names came in like Sadio Mane, Otavio, Laporte, and Seko Fofana. Now the spending didn't slow down the next season either. Al Nassr again went into 9 figures, highlighted by the signing of John Duran, who came from Aston Villa for 77 million euros. He actually signed a long-term deal, but just 6 months later, shortly after Ronaldo extended his contract, Duran was sent on loan to Fenerbahce. This season, the spending once again continued though. Al Nassr added Mohamed Simakan, Joao Felix, and Kingsley Coman, pushing their total spend above 100 million euros once again. According to Transfer Market, Al Nassr have spent around 414 million euros since Ronaldo arrived. That's pretty similar to Al Ittihad, who spent 380 million euros, and Al Ahly, who spent 386 million euros. The big outlier though is Al Hilal. Since January of 2023, those guys have spent roughly 650 million euros, so well clear of everyone else. Their signings include Neymar, Ruben Neves, Malcolm, Joao Cancelo, Koulibaly, and Darwin Núñez. So while Al Nassr have spent heavily since Ronaldo arrived, Al Hilal are operating on another level entirely, which helps explain why Ronaldo feels his club hasn't quite matched the ambition of their biggest rivals. Having said that though, you can also make the argument that this is selective outrage from Homelander. Like, yeah, he is right in the sense that the Saudi League is a bit weird and that an investment fund owns all the top teams. But the problem is that his outrage is selective. He had no problem when Al Nassr were already in first place and got him on 200 million a year when the other teams got nothing. He's okay when the league is unserious at times, but only when it benefits him. Now naturally, given who he is, he carries a huge influence at Al Nassr. Reportedly, he has allies inside the club. Jose Semedo, Al Nassr's Portuguese chief executive, is very close to him, as is Simão Coutinho, the club's Portuguese sporting director. So it's not like Ronaldo is isolated or ignored behind the scenes. That said though, real power at any football club still sits with the owners. They control the budget, approve transfers, and make the final calls on big decisions. And that's where Ronaldo's influence naturally has limits. What's very clear though is that Ronaldo has never been afraid to speak out when he's unhappy. We've seen this before. The most famous example coming in November of 2022 when he did an interview with Piers Morgan that led directly to his contract at Manchester United being terminated. That's also where the meme came from that whenever Ronaldo was upset, he says he's gonna go tell Piers Morgan about it. In that interview, nobody was spared. He openly criticized Ten Hag, who was his manager at the time, as well as the Glazers family and how they were running the club. So the situation at Al Nassr was not out of character. When Ronaldo believes standards aren't being met, history shows he's willing to go public, no matter how big the fallout might be. He has no problem criticizing the system once he stops winning. So what is his contract situation right now? Ronaldo joined Al Nassr at the end of December of 2022 as a free agent, shortly after his contract with United was terminated. At 37, he instantly became the face of the Saudi Pro League's push to bring global superstars to the league, with money clearly not being a concern. I mean, maybe these guys can pay me too, I'll make more Saudi videos. Big names like Neymar, Mahrez, Mane, and Benzema followed after Ronaldo ahead of the 2023-2024 season. Now, years later, Ronaldo is still by by far the biggest name in Saudi football. I mean, he's probably the biggest name in football flat out. He signed a 2-year contract last summer, which strengthened his ties both with Al Nassr and the Public Investment Fund. But once the upcoming summer transfer window opens, his deal will just have 12 months left to run. Now, nobody knows how long Ronaldo's strike will last, but looking from the outside, he doesn't have a ton of leverage. Everybody knows he wants to get to 1,000 goals, so it makes no sense for him to stop playing games. At least not for a long time. A few games here and there, okay, but Ronaldo's not gonna just take 3 months off. Not to mention he has his final ever World Cup coming up too. Another thing that really stands out is how self-inflicted this all feels. From the outside, Ronaldo's path looked pretty simple. Stay quiet, keep getting your goals, keep getting paid, and slowly walk your way to making history by scoring 1,000 goals. Instead though, once again, the story shifts away from football and towards politics and power plays. It's the typical kind of noise that seems to follow Ronaldo everywhere he goes. There's also a real question about what his end goal even is. If he does leave, where does he go? No top European club is building their team around Ronaldo anymore. They weren't willing to do it when he was 37, why would they do it when he's 41? Even clubs that might want him just for his name would have to accept clear trade-offs on the pitch. Cause yes, he's getting his goals, he's getting his stats, but Ronaldo's not the same guy he used to be. Maybe he goes back to Sporting for his final season. It doesn't really feel like he holds all the power anymore, even if he thinks he does. And of course, the perspective matters too. When you're the highest paid player the game has ever seen, it's hard to sell yourself as the victim in a spending argument. His complaints don't come off as concerns for fairness or even league integrity. It's more like his ego ran into reality. Ronaldo seems to have this pattern of saying the system is corrupt or against him every time he doesn't get his way. It happened with the World Cup, it happened with the Ballon d'Or, and you're seeing the same story in Saudi Arabia. It's a movie we've seen before. Massive ambition from Cristiano, total belief in himself, but then blaming everything he can when things don't go his way. Whether he stays or leaves, the drama around him keeps overshadowing the football. To see how Ronaldo's image has completely changed in these last twilight years of his career, you have to watch this video right here.